All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. All right, off-season time. We are in the calm before the storm, right? The combine has come and gone, and now it's just the lead up to the draft. And what will the 49ers do in the draft? And of course, between the draft and the combine is NFL free agency, which gets going in a week. This is the busiest time of year in the NFL. There's all kinds of maneuvering as far as moving draft picks, trying to get better draft position, making trades, contracts, moving players around. The most player movement that you'll see in the NFL is right now, right about now in the month of March. So, what do I want to see the 49ers do? And can we just cut through the clutter and get right to the brass tacks on what the Niners need to do? All right. I've seen a lot of speculation out there. What are the needs? The needs are offensive tackle, if especially if Mike McGlinchey leaves, defensive back if Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley leave. Linebacker potentially could still be a need if Aziz Al-Shaair leaves, and defensive tackle after the way Javon Kinlaw played in the playoffs, and the number of players that are free agents on the Niners defensive line, defensive end and defensive tackle are both needs. Backup tight end is probably a need. I will say this. I think the number one need for the 49ers is defensive tackle. This is a team that is trying to build a dominant defensive front. They want their defensive line to be the identity of the football team. This is where they want to be exceptionally strong. This is where they want to win. They're not as concerned about their secondary. They believe if they can move the quarterback off his spot and disrupt the quarterback, that will go a great distance to helping them win football games. So it's a regime that believes strongly in having an impactful defensive line. All right, what do the Niners really need to do? I think they need to trade for Jeffery Simmons from the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are shopping Derrick Henry. They've got cap problems. Last year they shopped AJ Brown for a pick, and I think they're going to do the same here with Jeffery Simmons. And I think Simmons is the guy to get if you're the 49ers. This is a guy. Now, how do you get him? I don't know. I don't know how you're going to get him. I don't know if you got to trade Trey Lance. I don't know if you have to trade future draft picks. I don't know what the plan is going to be, but this is the player that they need to win a Super Bowl. Go look at the last decade and look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl. They have two impact guys on their front seven. They have two guys on their front seven almost year after year after year. There's almost without fail. You have two impact guys on your front four. You're really going to be able to wreak havoc. This year, Kansas City wins the Super Bowl. They have Chris Jones and Frank Clark on their front line. You can't combo block both. You can't double team both those guys. The year before the Rams won, they had Aaron Donald and Von Miller. You couldn't double Von Miller because and Aaron Donald at the same time. So when you have two guys on your front four that have to be doubled to handle them, you've got the makings of a Super Bowl caliber defense. 3 years ago, Tampa won it all. They had Vita Vea and Jason Pierre-Paul. Now those guys don't sound great today, but guess what? They had phenomenal years 3 years ago for Tampa Bay. 4 years ago, Chiefs Niners in the Super Bowl. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, they dominated up front. 49ers had no answer for either one of those guys. Philadelphia, a few years prior to that, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett. Two guys, really three guys there that had to be doubled on that defensive front. When Denver won the Super Bowl here at Levi's down in Santa Clara, Derek Wolfe was a monster inside for them. They had Von Miller on the outside. So once again, two guys on your front that you got to double. When the Seahawks did it in 2013, they had Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett coming off the edges. Two guys that you got to double. All right, let's go back in Niner history. Last time the 49ers were in the Super Bowl, they had, what did they have? They had Nick Bosa and DeForest Buckner on their defensive front. And they almost won the Super Bowl. Two guys that had to be combo blocked, that you had to double team both guys. Before that, the Super Bowl they went to against the Ravens, they had Aldon Smith and the Cowboy, Justin Smith, two guys that had to be doubled. If you want to go back to the last time the Niners actually got it done in the Super Bowl, the 1994 season, what do they have on their front line? BY and Stubby, the great Bryant Young and Dana Stubblefield. Stubblefield was a burgeoning Defensive Player of the Year award winner. He would go on to win it in 97. This was a couple years prior to that. And you had rookie Bryant Young, who's, in Canton. So you got Hall of Famers, a Hall of Fame guy on your defensive front. The bottom line is you need impact guys. Why have Nick Bosa if you're just going to leave him naked out there? Now, the 49ers weren't naked. That's probably unfair. They had a really deep defensive front this year. And there's some really good players on their defensive front. But they're just good players. They're not difference makers. They're not crazy great players. They're just good players. I like several of their players, but are they dominators? Is Samson Ebukam a dominator? I don't know if I see dominator. Is Charles Omenihu a dominator? No. You don't have to combo block Charles Omenihu. You don't have to combo block Jordan Willis. You barely even have to combo block Eric Armstead, but I would say he would be the closest thing to Nick Bosa as far as a dominant player on the front line. But if you really look at the Niners right now, what do they really need? They need a defensive line that really scares you, and that where you have to double two guys. And to me, if you got a Jeffery Simmons, now you got to double Simmons and you got to double Nick Bosa. And that's a major problem. And to me, that's what takes them from good team, competitive team, Super Bowl contender to Super Bowl winner. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take somebody like Jeffery Simmons. Now, Tennessee, I think, is getting ready to tear it down. They're shopping Derrick Henry. They've got some cap issues. When you're shopping Derrick Henry, you're thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the present. And Jeffery Simmons is a big-time player. He had 7.5 sacks in 2022. He had 8.5 sacks in 2021. These have been the last couple of years. He's played 15, 17, and 15 games. And he's had, if you look at it, 18, almost 19 sacks in the last 3 years for Jeffery Simmons. So he's an impact guy. He's an impact guy against the run. He's an impact guy against the pass. Is it going to cost you a first round pick? Yeah, probably is, but he's worth it. Can you find a player in the draft? Maybe. Can you find a player in free agency? Unlikely that they're going to be able to find somebody who's going to command double teams in free agency. They don't have the kind of cap room necessarily to compete for big time free agents, but this is the guy that I would move your cap around for. It's not going to be cheap. Jeffery Simmons is going to demand big money, but guess what? If you have Nick Bosa, Jeffery Simmons, Eric Armstead, then you could fill in or at that other spot with, draft choices and maybe Drake Jackson and Jordan Willis maybe coming back in free agency. Maybe you could even get away with Kerry Hyder and T.Y. McGill and Kevin Givens and Kalia Davis getting some run from time to time. Why? Because you've got two impact guys on your front seven. Look at the history of who's won the Super Bowl in the last 10 years. Look at their defensive fronts. Almost to a man, almost year after year after year, there almost is no exception. You need two guys on your front four that need to be doubled. The Niners don't have that right now. If they added Jeffery Simmons, they would have two guys on their defensive front that need to be doubled. So, John Lynch, I don't know how you can do it. I don't know what combination of draft picks or players Tennessee and Rand Carthon would take for Jeffery Simmons. But absolutely, if you say, what do the 49ers really need to get their defense back to a Super Bowl winning caliber defense? Go get Jeffery Simmons. All right, that's our Pig in a Pickle Krug Show video on the 49ers. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out the Krug Show for more 49er content, all brought to you by Pig in a Pickle.